He hates me selling the eggs. Wants to keep them all for the house.
Well, there we are. It's well worth it. You can't beat a fresh egg.
Indeed you can't, sir. Thanks for
See you again, please God.
Please God, and I hope you bring better weather with you. Good luck now. I don't believe we're going to get the eggs. Where does anybody get eggs? The supermarket.
Glenroe was one of the only windows into Irish life that we had. Who are we? What are we like? At times we were going, well, are we all Mileys? Are we all kind of curly-headed gombeens? And there's a few people like Dick Moran, these developers.
Hello?
It was the show to be on, and everybody enjoyed being on it because we laughed every day. We laughed and laughed and laughed.
Well, Murishma Conneal, who was the controller of programs at the time, came to me and he said that they needed a new soap opera, and they were thinking of two, in fact. They were thinking of an urban series and a rural series. But for the moment, would I go ahead with the rural series? And I was anxious, because I was a dub myself, to do the urban one. And he said no, that they wanted the rural. So it became a question of then maybe joining the two together. So it became, in a sense, an urban series. That's what I called it.
The rapidly growing village of Kilcool, 20 miles from Dublin, was chosen as the fictional setting for Glenroe.
When the idea of doing Glenroe, which was originally called Glendara, came about, I started to think, okay, what would work for that? So I started to tinker around with it and got the idea of somebody whistling this tune, walking down a country lane.
My creative contribution was that you came up with August Huasa Garchacornin, and I went, yeah, that sounds great. And that was my contribution to the writing of the theme of Glenroe.
It was absolutely typical of what was happening, Dublin creeping down the coast, over the hills and into Wicklow. You can see it in the opening credits. It goes from Unglaun Rua, the old-style Gaelic name, to Glenroe.
Glenroe revolved around Dinny and Miley Byrne, two of the most popular characters in RTÉ's moody drama serial, Bracken. In the first episode, the father and son are moving down the mountain to start a new life as market farmers.
Well, there were three divine persons in Glenroe. Dinny and his son Miley. That's Joe Lynch and Mick Lally. And then Mary McAvoy as Biddy. That was the nucleus of the thing.
Oh, this is Biddy, my daughter. Biddy, these are the new neighbours, Dinny Byrne and Miley.
Are you cutting me or what, Mary?
I am not. Why would I?
A little slip of a thing like yourself with a grown-up daughter. I'll go with that.
Your father's a great gift for flattery, Miley.
Dinny, I suppose, represented that kind of cute horism, if you'll pardon the expression, of, the natural Irish, the man with the cap, who is as cute as they come, Miley, slightly sort of open like a sponge, slightly gormless, slightly, dare I say it, simple in his ways.
I didn't know which way to look, sticking out your old socks like rotten turnips.
Now, weren't they clean?
Indeed they weren't.
So there was a lovely conflict there from the beginning, this cute, smart aleck father who knew the wicked ways of the world, and this simple person represented by Miley.
I think, what? I think we've landed on our feet.
Father's our right old ram. I know. What about the son?
It's hard to say. Looks a bit soft.
What Biddy represented particularly was the young, go-ahead, rural woman, with plenty of ideas.
I was only a year out of living on the farm. I had done a theatre course in the Oscar Theatre School and suddenly found myself, with these people, Mick Lally and Joe Lynch, these people that I'd watched on television, these giants of television. I was there. I was completely starstruck. I was kind of pinching myself, I mean, I think definitely I got the part because I had the background. I grew up on a farm. But I always say I got the part because I could drive a tractor. But I had a very posh friend who said to me when I got the part, she was in the drama school with me, the theatre school with me, and she said, "Darling, there are some people one can imagine getting over a barbed wire fence, and you're one of them."
The creative genius behind Glenroe was Wesley Burrows. A native of County Down, Burrows is regarded as the pioneer of rural drama in Ireland. Having written hundreds of episodes of The Reardons, he then created its spin-off series, Bracken.
After Where in the World, the phone went off the hook, and we sat here and watched Glenroe for half an hour. And then I used to realise that I haven't done my homework as soon as the credits used to run. I'd sort of sit there and you go, "That was good, wasn't it, Elena?" And then I'd go, "Very good. It was excellent. Isn't Dick Moran very handsome?" I mean, he moved to Kilkenny when he was writing for The Reardons. After that, he met Mum, and they moved to Heytesbury Lane and then down to Avoca in Wicklow. And I think there he saw quite a few characters there.
I did an awful lot of listening to their characters, saying even the lines that they had written. And sometimes they would make little changes, and I would realise that this was more typical of country life than what I could imagine. And I would use it, so I learned a great deal from them.
He would listen to the voices and the conversation and the peculiarities of speech and the rhythms of speech. You know, where else would he have got Miley's at all?
Well, do you know what? But I didn't recognise you at all. Huh? Well, you're looking smashing, do you know that?
I was very good at stealing other people's ideas, stealing other people's thoughts, you know. Well, I had some thoughts of my own, but a great many of them were gleaned from living in the country.
It's great land to grow, isn't it?
What do you want to grow?
Grow spuds, I suppose. Spuds. Bit of cabbage.
Cabbage. Do you hear the innocence of that? Do you not know there was spuds left in the ground last year because it wasn't worthwhile digging them out?
Dad, there's no need to be roaring about it.
The main relationship in Glenroe was the father-son relationship, and that's crucial. It was a brilliant piece of characterisation, but also a brilliant piece of playing by Joe Lynch.
Listen, when you get as old as I am, you'll know when people want you to be familiar. She enjoyed it.
Well, indeed, she did not.
She did so.
Look at the two faces there as they confront each other, you know. You know, the son saying, "You've never faced up to the reality of the situation. You know, you're always trying to dodge the fact that we owe this man. We haven't paid our taxes for this. You're going to dodge the thing about this. But this is the way I've always lived. And look at me, I'm still here. I've survived. You know, I've beaten them," the old fellow was saying, you know. And never, you know, facing up to the fact that the son loved him. And all the son wanted was that moment of affection and love.
Come on, Dad. Time to go home.
You're always wanting to go home. You're like a shagging pigeon.
Go home, Dinny.
Wesley Burrows wrote it as entertainment. He had a fine comic touch. He was deft with a line. He was deft with dialogue. And he was good with humour and good with comedy. I think he was less interested in, you know, going, who are we as a nation? I think it sought to be an entertaining, rural drama.
One of the most enduring early storylines was the will they, won't they courtship of Biddy and Miley.
Come here. If you say one word about spring cabbage, I think I'll kill you.
People were dying for them to get together and all of this. And of course, Mick was so clever in the way he played Miley that you were frustrated and she's only mad about you and go and ask her. And
Have you any use?
I finished the top field. So
and even sometimes in the script, Mick would he'd put in something to make Miley even more, you know, reticent and more awkward about the thing.
Oh, listen, by the way, I nearly forgot. I brought you something. Look, a few of the carrots. You can boil up a few of them when you feel like it. Try them out.
Miley was working his way round towards thinking about maybe suggesting to Biddy that they might perhaps form a union, and he's in the pub with George, and he says to George, you know, he looks for George's advice on how to propose marriage.
It's just to see, how would you go about it?
I think you should consider the possibility that she might already have made up her mind.
Before I even ask her?
Oh, it's quite possible that she knows what's coming. Women are quite extraordinary in that way.
No. I wouldn't even think it ever crossed her mind, George.
George and Miley are basically the same person, but with totally different backgrounds. And it's one of those sort of cultural rules that the aristocrat and the peasant are closer in personality and in understanding of the way the world works. What gets in the way is the middle class, the bourgeoisie.
Yes, you must be quite firm about it. That's quite vital. I should face her fairly and squarely, no backing down, and then I should say something like,
The two of us are knocking around together a long time now, and well, neither of us are getting any younger. So why don't we just stop all the correcting about it and tie the old knot? Thanks very much, Tom.
Well, the genius, to my mind, of Glenroe is that it was character-driven, not plot-driven. And you had a group of actors, very good actors, who understood that and played that off.
Is there any news?
What sort of news?
You know, like, is there anything stirring?
What do you mean, is there anything stirring?
Yourself and Biddy, is there anything happening?
Well, don't you worry. The minute anything stirs, as you put it, you'll be the first to know.
2 years later, to her grandfather's delight, baby Denise arrived. Local girl Blonith Tracy was cast in the role.
So I started when I was 3 months old and I was in it till I was 13. My memories of being on set is literally just seeing crews and cameras and microphones and the banter that all the cast would be having with each other. They'd be kind of slagging each other and having the crack, and then, oh, you're up next, 5 minutes, so you get yourself organised, go over your lines.
Hello?
Welcome to TuTube. Chill out and finish off all of those Halloween sweets, because all this is coming up over the next 2
After 13 years on Glenroe, Blonith decided to pursue a career in television. She's now a presenter on RTE.
And a pair of tickets to Putting on the Ritz. I'll tell you more right after this. So this is where I would have spent 13 years of my life, running in and out. My old dressing room was down that way. So we'd be waiting down there to be called, then you get called. This door was always closed and we'd go through that little door in there. And inside here was all the interiors for Glenroe. So it was Biddy and Miley's kitchen, the sitting room, the pub was in here. Every single interior shot was in here. How do they fit all those sets in here?
Throughout Glenroe's history, the turbulent relationship between Dick Moran and Mary McDermott was one of the biggest audience draws.
Great to see you. How are you?
It's a long time.
Indeed. Come in, you go ahead.
Okay, thanks. How many wives did Dick Moran have?
Dick Moran had, let me think.
You should know. You kept an eye on all of them.
He had a wife prior to Glenroe, so
played
to speak.
by Fidelma
Murphy.
That's right.
Mary McDermott got married when she was very young to a much older man, and she was sort of urban, but not actually urban, and yet not fully rural. And she liked her clothes, and she liked cards, and she liked having a nice time, and she just seemed to have a kind of a relatively cushy life, you know, when she was having the affair with Dick. And then she gets married, and everybody sort of took care of her a bit. She was a nice woman, and people used to approach me in the street and say, how are you, Mary, and chat to me as if I was just a nice woman. I think she was a tiny bit selfish, though, at times, you know, so...
5 or 6 ton of turnips there.
Oh, are they ours?
Well, they're on your land.
Dick Moran, part of his thing was he really wanted to be a kind of hard businessman. And he never made it. He was always trying to con people or pull a stroke. He never succeeded once in all the time.
Would you like me to sell them for you?
And he kept being caught by his character, which was that he'd like to do everybody. When it came to the push, he couldn't find it in himself, really. He'd rather get on with people than rip them off. And he loved Mary McDermott.
I don't have to spell it out.
I'd far rather you did spell it out.
All right. In simple language, I think we ought to get married. Not now, not tomorrow. There's no pressure.
Dick and Mary had a problem that they loved one another, and the laws of the state were against them in some way. for a large part of Mary McDermott's life, she felt guilty because she was having an affair with the man she loved.
We can't get married because that's a sin, but the odd dirty weekend, that's all right as long as nobody knows about it.
Now, stop it, Dick.
I'm sorry to be so blunt, Mary, but that's the truth of it, isn't it? And I never knew you could be such a bloody hypocrite.
Wesley had a wonderful thing. He had that Northern Protestant, slightly dubious look at, you know, the Southern Catholic Irish. You know, he just felt they were all a little bit, you know, on the make or on the take and things like that. He had that in his nature, you know, and he always insisted that there was a solid Protestant representation.
He could so easily have given George, you know, a huge mansion and a title, but he didn't. He just made him a person. No title. Yes, he'd inherited land. Yes, it was by the average standard, the house we used, it was a big house. But it wasn't a vast house. But it represented a culture.
Morning, George. Morning, Padre.
He wrote a beautiful scene between George and the priest, Father Devereux, and we had great fun doing it. It was such a simple scene, and there were just 2 lines that mattered in it.
Nice young fella. You're not a local, of course, but sure which of us is.
Well, speak for yourself, Padre. My family's been in this village for over 300 years.
Haven't you settled in well, what?
And that was the point. That was the key to it. That he was representing something that was an intrinsic part of Irish life.
Well, they were wonderful actors. I mean, you couldn't but love working with them, you know, all of them. You know, I don't have a bad word to say about any. We were just so lucky in the group of actors that we got.
Poor little child.
What's wrong with her?
Every time I look at her, I think of Miley. He was the only child in the parish without a brother or a sister. They all thought it was odd.
Did they?
They did.
Come on, Denise. He thinks you're odd.
Oh, don't you say that to the child, didn't she?
Lynch had been such a great actor in Britain, such a big name. He had done a lot of very, very big series. He'd done some wonderful film work and things like that, and stage work in Britain and things like that. He was a star, he was a superstar.
In the name of all that's holy, sir, what the hell do you think you're at?
Who, me?
You stole my sheep, you dirty, rotten, God forgive me, is what you're nothing else.
No, he had a great facility for accent and things like that. And he knew exactly what Wesley, so he was playing not his character, not Joe Lynch's character. He, of all of the people in the series, was playing something quite different.
Over the years, a host of new characters joined the show. Maureen Toll, who played the glamorous publican Teasy MacDade, arrived in Glenroe in March 1987.
Who the hell is Teasy?
What's she here?
I don't care if she hears me. I want to know who she is.
All the poor girl wants a little bit of breakfast.
Well, I'm afraid there's something more than a little bit of breakfast involved. No, please, Biddy, suspend judgment until you hear what I've got to say.
More than her breakfast, you said?
Well, you see, I felt obliged to ask her to stay here.
Oh, you have a lovely bathroom.
Dinny says you'll be staying with us.
Yes, you know, don't.
He's a sweetheart. Miley, when you come back, keep an eye on these rashers.
Well, why? Where'll you be?
I'll be outside with your father.
Oh, yeah, well, I'll see you later, Teasy.
Right, yeah, Dinny. And listen, thanks for everything.
Oh, you're welcome.
Aren't they a lovely family?
Oh, indeed they are, yes, that's you. Dr. Barnardo's isn't in it.
And then there were the star actors who made memorable guest appearances. Names such as Cyril Cusack, who played Dinny's brother-in-law, Uncle Peter.
No, you see, I'm a seafaring man, actually. I'm just keeping the place for Dinny while he be away.
And David Kelly, who played Teasy's ne'er-do-well husband, Sylvie Dolan.
You're going to start forcing drink on me again, but you're a terrible man, isn't he? A terrible man.
People came in from the outside ever so often, and they brought in a dimension of what is happening out there. But then, like Brigadoon, everything closed in again, and there was, we all moved again into the comfort zone of Glenroe.
While Glenroe was firmly character-driven, Wesley Burroughs occasionally worked some astute social commentary into Glenroe's storylines. In the late 80s, Travellers, Blackie Connors and his brother-in-law Johnny were introduced.
What is it, Johnny?
Sometimes I wish I never learned how to read.
It's your summons, isn't it?
Yeah. Wesley Burroughs, knew what he was doing because, you're talking about bringing travellers, the travelling community, into the homes of over 1 million people on a Sunday evening. So that was a good move.
May the Lord confirm the consent you have given and enrich you with his blessings. Where are the rings? Blackie, will you stir yourself the rings?
I was reared as a traveller, I lived with travellers, so it was a whole new experience.
May these rings be a symbol of their faith in each other.
Walking on to the set in Glenroe and then walking into the reading room and meeting all those actors that you would have looked at since 1983 was huge. You had Mick Lally, you had Joe Lynch, you had Maureen Toll, you had Mary McAvoy, Geraldine Plunkett, so it was like walking onto the set of Hollywood, you could say, for a young fella at the time. And it was just amazing, and it was very, very frightening. The wedding in Glenroe was one of the highlights of my work on Glenroe. I loved it. We had something like maybe 60 or 70 travellers as extras. There was a great camaraderie between the actors and the travellers, coming up looking for photographs of Mick and Mary and Biddy and all that type of stuff. And then at the end of the evening, we went into the pub to do a scene, and we were all sitting there, and all the actors went home and all the extras went home. And I think there was myself and about 6 or 7 members of my family waiting for the bus to come back to collect us. And the dampener was when all the settled people left and the carmen men left, the barman came down and asked us to leave. And I says, but we're actors and we're a part of the... I don't care, he says, if you don't get out and call in the guards. And I says, is this because we're travellers? And he just looked at me and walked away. I went back into work, I think, maybe, I don't know if it was the next day or the day after, and people got wind of what happened, and all the rest of the actors and the settled people who worked in RT were very, very upset. And I remember looking at Mick Lally, and I'd say if Mick Lally was in the building, he would have tore it down with his 2 hands.
Listen, big old torch is a grand girl. Listen to the God in your boat.
In a case of art imitating life, Johnny's family are thrown out of the wedding venue in Glenroe. When Miley protests on their behalf, he ends up getting arrested.
Prepare yourself for a bit of bad news. Miley's in jail.
Well, disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, that sort of thing. I can't talk. I'm going up to the station now to bail him out.
Don't bother.
Why shouldn't I bother?
Because he's in here in bed beside me.
I think, from my point of view as well, I think it was the comic element of it, They're terribly funny.
Many of Glenroe's funniest moments arose from Dinny's endless scheming. The cantankerous Stephen Brennan, played by Robert Carrickford, was often the foil in these scenarios.
That's it. It never was a gag. It was never something that wasn't in the... And it was wonderful, particularly the 2 Cork men, who didn't particularly get on that well with each other. Donald Farmer, who played the older priest, and Joe Lynch. But they sparked up each other.
My scenes I remember in Glenroe were really with Joe Lynch. He didn't fool me that much. He didn't cut around with me because I was almost his age, and as well as which I had directed him in a show in Irish many, many years before that, about 10, 15 years before that.
If they were getting made up together, they would sit beside each other and they would start rehearsing the lines. Are you going to give me that pause there? Oh, you're not going to give me that pause there. There was that little bit of tension going on between them.
He wasn't very fond of rehearsing lines beforehand, but when we were both sort of stuck in makeup, I'd say that type of thing, and he'd say, oh yeah, and then I'd do that, and I'd say, no, I don't think you should do that. Now Joe would kind of take over, and I didn't want that. I had to mind my own corner, but we worked out something. We worked out a way of doing things, and it seemed to work all right.
In the shed. Listen, we better mind our manners now because we're being visited by the clergy.
There you are. Well, Denise, looking out for the granddad, are you?
Oh, indeed, she is.
I brought you back the dogs, didn't I?
One of the funniest stories I'd ever seen was Dinny and Donald Farmer with the greyhound. And this, of course, was a beautiful exposition of what it's like in Irish life. 2 men on the make.
I'll tell you what, could you lay him in the shed because I can't leave the child here.
Right. Tell me when is Lancelot going to start earning his keep?
Well, now,
Any day now.
They were breeding a greyhound, and the greyhound got out. Dinny let the dog out because he wasn't paying attention. And whatever happened, a Jack Russell was involved with the greyhound, and Dinny hadn't got the nerve to tell Father Devereux.
I was given a valuable property in trust by this man, and I abused the trust.
What was the nature of the property?
It was a greyhound bitch, Father.
It was just in looks and glances that you knew. It needn't necessarily be a line, it needn't necessarily be the comedy. It's in the reaction.
It was the day she ran away. And on the 13th of October, the facts are that she committed adultery with a Jack Russell Terrier.
Beautiful piece of writing, I believe, by Wesley. And that's what made Glenroe special.
Before I leave you, Dinny, could I just say that in the course of what was admittedly a fairly sheltered career, I have never come across a more devious man than yourself.
Thank you very much, Father. A man can only do his best.
You would have made a great Jesuit.
At Tesco, we're big on bringing you 100% Irish meat 100% of the time. That's why all our fresh meat is sourced from farms all across the country. Because we're as passionate about quality Irish meat as you are. Tesco. Every little helps.
Come with me and lead me in a world.
All our great toys are made to spark worlds of imagination.
Having fun?
Kinder Surprise, a treat for the imagination.
So many steps to cleansing skin. What a chore. Garnier makes removing makeup easier with micellar cleansing water. In one step, the micelles capture makeup and impurities like a magnet. Removes makeup, cleanses, soothes. Your 3-in-1 solution for sensitive skin. Garnier Micellar Cleansing Water. Oily skin? Try Garnier Pure Active Micellar Cleansing Water. Enriched with purifying agents to help fight the appearance of spots. Ireland's #1 micellar range. Discover yours.
Healthy bones and the Irish weather. Two things you just can't take for granted. But here's one solution. Avonmore Supermilk has all the vitamin D you need in one glass to help your bones absorb the calcium they need. And now, with Avonmore Supermilk, you could win not one, but 2 family sun holidays. See the special Capture the Sun packs for details. Avonmore Supermilk, supporting healthy bones for life.
Little fella.
This is Kenny. He'll do anything to get his hands on Cushelle. It's oh so soft and highly absorbent because it's fluffed up with micro air pockets for a clean and comfortable feeling. Cushelle, softness you can't live without.
Like this. Yeah, work away. So do you want to help?
Yes!
Fun to eat and fun to make. Shivers, Ireland's favourite jelly. Also available in handy ready-to-eat pots.
When you feel good on the inside, you look at life with a smile. Activia contains exclusive Bifidus actiregularis and calcium that gently helps your digestive well-being. Because when your tummy smiles, you smile. Activia. Feed your inner smile.
In the village of Glenroe, there was never a general election. There was never a presidential election. I don't think there was ever a referendum. No major political issue was ever confronted. It was kind of fairyland where everything happened nicely.
As the series progressed, Dick and Mary got their wish and had a fairy tale wedding in Rome.
But we were outside the Colosseum in Rome, and there was a couple that, oh, Dick and Mary, oh, they're getting married, and all excitement. They said, and the director said, well, you know, don't say anything. You'll keep it under your hat, because we were ahead of the plot, so to speak. And they said, oh yeah, we won't say anything, but do you mind if we congratulate them? Do you remember that? The couple, yes.
While Miley and Biddy's marriage also went from strength to strength, we could count on the core relationship between father and son to remain the same. In Series 13, with an audit looming, Dinny resorts to whatever means possible to hide his prosperity.
You're right there now. Yeah, good. Where are you going?
I'm going to pay my respects to Biddy.
You are not.
Take your hand off of my arm, sir.
Look, would you look at the cut of yourself, would you?
I'm only doing it for you.
Listen, if you want to help, you will disappear off the face of this farm for the rest of the day.
I certainly will not. I'm not going to be run to ground by any tax gatherer.
Look, I'm telling you now, you'll not go next nor near that woman, all right? We'll have enough explaining to do if she starts on about your cattle.
Don't you worry about the cattle.
Why should I not worry about the cattle?
I'm telling you, it's all right. Job's Oxo.
What do you mean?
Look, whatever you say nothing about the cattle.
But she's going to say them.
No, she is not.
We decided we'd bring in a couple of writers, and the best comedy writer in town was Bernard Farrell.
The writing system for Glenroe was that first there was the absolute acknowledgement that Wesley Burroughs, it was his series. He created the characters, he created the setting for Glenroe, and that was all in place. Outside of that, when you were asked to write 2 episodes, 4 episodes, how many, you had a complete free run.
Look, last night I tried to give you a present.
Oh, that was a payoff, was it?
I loved writing for David Kelly, because I had worked with him on the stage quite a few times, and he has a great sense of comedy. There was an episode I did with him one time in which he put his foot into a rabbit trap, and he couldn't get away, and he was stuck. And coming across the field, he saw Dinny, and Dinny was carrying a shotgun. Dinny said to him in a previous episode, he said to him, I'm fed up with you being around this town. If you don't get out of here very quickly, I'm going to kill you. And that was the essence of what was coming next.
Now, look, just get me out of this before I die. Come on. Oh, now, wait a minute, Dinny. Look, for God's sake, Dinny, let's talk. Look, I'll do anything you say.
But what Dinny was actually firing at was a fox that was just behind them. And that was what he had missed.
Glenroe was known and loved for its comedy, a perfect marriage of witty dialogue and brilliant performances. But throughout Glenroe's history, the biggest audiences tuned in for its more risque storylines.
Did he? Terry! How are you?
Terry came back as Terry Killeen, and she had been some hotshot over in London, working in London, and arrived back with the specific purpose, I think, to seduce Dick Moran. I'm sorry to call so late.
That's all right.
I brought my CV.
Oh, good, good.
Mary had gone away, and I rolled up in Dick and Mary's house. I dropped in out of the blue, deliberately, obviously. I seem to remember in the course of the dialogue, all I did was I tucked my feet up under me on the sofa and took an earring off. It was just the simplest thing, and yet it was profoundly shocking to the nation. What have you to say about that?
Not a word.
It ran for episodes and episodes and episodes, and I was involved in some of it, where Mary, Dick's wife, kind of suspected that maybe he's having an affair. And Geraldine Plunkett, such a consummate actor, was able to show on her face, there's something not quite right here, there's somebody else, or she may have found a hair on his jacket or something like that, blonde. And Kate Thompson, she was moving in the shadows, you know, and being very romantic and passionate. And Dick was caught between, you know, this is a really exciting affair, but yet Mary is lovely Mary, and she's so good to me and everything like that. And all the dilemmas were in place.
You're not sorry, are you?
No. But if Mary were to walk in that door now, then I'd be sorry.
All right, I won't take him. I'll bring my coffee in the bedroom. Have it while I dress.
Thanks.
I went into town one day and I was aware of people reacting to me, and it was the day after the first episode I was involved in had been transmitted.
Postman.
I guess it's something that loads of soap stars live with now. You'd walk into a shop and somebody would look up from the counter and say, "Oh, I hate you." And I would get death threats, handwritten death threats.
Wesley knew how the affair was going to end, and he was deciding how long the affair should go on. But it was great for the writers, because it meant that you could play around with the affair, just like Dick was playing around. We could be all playing around.
Am I the first? There's no one else coming. Oh, just the two of us. Oh, Dick's in London, of course. Yes. In fact, there isn't even any dinner. Oh. Just sit down, Terry. You and Dick have been having an affair, haven't you? How can you ask a thing like that? Oh, I didn't really mean it as a question. You see, I know you have.
Wesley had a wonderful way with characters. And the characters of Mary and Dick, you know, were so good, so well written. And they came out from deep inside knowledge of himself. So I think he identified strongly with the character of Dick. Dick was a good-looking, strong, resourceful, witty individual, very much like Wesley himself.
You write what you know. You create art out of your own knowledge and your own experience, because anything else you try to create is invention.
He would use the odd things that happened to him. He'd write about them in the programme.
Such as?
Well, his heart attack was probably the main one. He had a heart attack in 1990.
For a few weeks before, walking the dogs and so on, I began to get a bit puffed and felt this pain in my chest, the familiar one. And it never occurred to me that it was heart. I thought I was just unfit. And it gradually got worse, and it took less and less exertion to produce the same pain. You know, you tie your lace and find the pain coming back.
First, it only came when I did something strenuous, like running up the stairs or something.
And recently?
It takes much less. Getting out of an armchair, tying my shoelace.
And I got a phone call from John Lynch saying, "We have a crisis here, Bernard. Wesley Burrows has got a heart attack and he's in Lochnastown Hospital and he's not well at all. He's in intensive care." And I said, "Oh, that's terrible about Wesley." And he said, "Yes, we don't know what the next 2 episodes of Glenroe are going to be because they're Wesley's and we don't know what's going to happen." And I said, "Oh my God, does anybody know what his plot lines were, what area he was working in?" And John said, "No." But he said, "We've got permission for you to go in if you agree to write the 2 episodes. And I don't know if I had that they wanted me to go in that particular day because they were wondering if Wesley was going to live or die and what would happen to Glenroe. And I went into the intensive care and Wesley was lying out and he was all wired up and there was a little thing like you see in the movies going beep, 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 beep behind him. So I went in and I said, "Wesley, is Bernard here?" And he said, "Oh, hello, Bernard, how are you?" I said, "You won't be able to write your next 2 episodes, I understand." And he said something like, "Well, what do you think?" And I said, "So I'm going to write them. Now tell me, what was going to happen? What's going to happen between Biddy and Miley?" And then he was away. "Well, they're going to go out and they're going to treat the cattle for fluke and worms." I was writing all this down.
It's this way. The doctor, Dick.
I believe that the reason I was cast at Glenroe is because Wesley Burrows had had a heart attack. And his wife called the doctor, and in walked this very young man, and Wesley Burroughs said, "Keep that bloody child away from me." And so Wesley then wrote that in, that Dick Moran had a heart attack, and in I come, 21 years of age, perfectly capable and competent of what I'm doing, but very, very young.
Do you think he knows what he's talking about, Mary? He looks very young. He looks about 12.
He knows, Dick. I trust him.
As soon as you go into a soap like that, they go, right, he's 21. Which girl can he go out with?
Dr. Hanlon's love interest had already arrived in Glenroe in the form of Eunice McMenamin, who played Biddy's cousin Fidelma.
After 2 episodes, you're immediately scouring the village, bumping in accidentally to all these people who are your age going, "Hi, would you like to have lunch sometime?" So anyway, my turn had come to kind of saunter over to her as the new dashing doctor in Glenroe and kind of suggest that we go for a drink. So anyway, they said, "So Mario, you're going to drive into this scene." And I went, "I don't drive." "Okay, well, you're going to have to drive." And I went, "I don't drive. I'd crash the car all over the place." "Mario, okay, we'll put a stuntman in with you. You get into the driving seat, and Val, the stunt guy, will lean over onto your lap and drive the car." I arrive into scene, and Biddy and Fidelma are talking together. And Biddy goes, "Ooh, would you look who it is?" Ooh. And Fidelma goes, "Ooh."
"I've just been thinking about you, actually. There's a sort of party on tonight. Well, it's not really a party. It's just some friends who've qualified getting together."
I thought I was Hugh Grant.
"I'm on call from midnight, so if you were free..."
Sunday night, 3 weeks later. I'm watching it. I get a call from all my friends going, "That was so funny!" And I went, "What was funny?" "The hand! The hand!" And I go, "What hand?" I was wearing these Crombie. And when I was talking to Fidelma, trying to ask her out, little did I realise my hands were in my pocket. But all of those Crombies have a part in their pocket where it goes through to the inside lining. All the time, there's this little hand coming out through like this. I'm like some sort of sick flasher.
Well, I hope to see you again.
Bye. Bye.
By the 1990s, the landscape of television drama was shifting. Launched in 1989, Fair City signalled the change with gritty storylines involving murder, incest and domestic abuse. It was a world away from the sleepy Wicklow village.
I think the main problem was that the socio-economic landscape of Ireland was changing. Young people were moving off the land as a way of life to the cities, to the bright lights.
It changed into a soap. I think there's a difference between a rural drama, a drama serial, and a soap. And a soap is just a conveyor belt where you're just getting people involved in loads of different situations. There's loads of several stock places to meet. People seem to endlessly convene there. What a day everybody has. They're in the field, they're in the doctors, they're in the pub 3 times, and they've forgotten stuff down the shop 8 times. I mean, what kind of a people live in these places?
On Sunday, the 10th of January 1998, the broadcast took place of the most controversial moment in the show's history.
Oh my goodness. Trip down memory lane here. Oh my gosh. So this is where the infamous scene was shot.
When Miley went and had that dreadful affair, for me it was completely, absolutely out of character. I think that's when Glenroe went off the tracks for me to a certain extent.
Hiya.
Is she all right? Ah, poor love.
Oh, look at this.
Just something to keep out the cold. They had been talking about it for a while, and they had suggested what you think it would work, and you think people would, believe it, I suppose. And myself and Mick really weren't that keen. We didn't think, because it was so out of character, especially for Mick's character. We weren't really sure. And then when we got the script, it was just like, oh my God.
Do you have tittles, Miley?
David has no tittles. Oh, you do? Ooh, Miley has tittles.
Tickles everywhere. I think everyone has tickles. I bet you have tickles.
The scene in the hayloft when Fidelma nearly jumped on him, I think, and everybody thought that Miley, would jump from a 3-store window to get away from a woman who was doing that, but not at all. He grabbed her. And everybody went, oh, Miley, Miley, Miley.
I remember Glenroe wanting to stage it properly, and I remember me wanting to stage it properly. I remember thinking, okay, we could do this really badly. and the sense that the guy doesn't even get hit. And I'd be going, oh, Jesus, RTE, you know. I clearly saw he didn't even hit him. But I think it looks like a good box. And Miley just goes flying.
All the actors would have said, that's kind of completely out of character for Miley. But it's soap. Characters in soaps do things out of character all the time, or else you wouldn't be able to keep it going. They have to go against type. But we as actors were kind of going, oh God, that's really weird. But then we saw the effect it was having on the storyline and, you know, the interest in the show. So we all suddenly decided, oh yeah, he would. Of course he would.
I suppose we should talk.
Once Miley had his role in The Hay with Fidelma, it was almost impossible to go back to what Miley had been perceived, you know, as this affable half-Egypt. You had to be very careful with plotlines like that, you know, that you don't ruin a character for an audience, you know.
You're part of the family. I know. And if this happened with anybody else, it'd be bad enough. It'd be terrible. But with you, Fidelma, it's beyond the beyond.
Wesley had stopped writing. But what happened was, I think that the producers in the later days decided to make it much more plot-driven than character-driven. And to have silly things that I couldn't go with. I mean, we had a whole run of episodes when George was working in the pub and pulling the slowest and most perfect pint of Guinness imaginable.
What's keeping you with them pints?
Patience, Dennis, you will rarely have tasted such a pint.
Like 2 years later, they suddenly write in this fact that George pours a pint that's so bad it never gets a head on it. And I'm sort of saying, no, hang on a minute. This is ridiculous. You're just going for a cheap gag.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
Hi. My own character was written out twice. So you get your scripts, and loath as I am to say this as an actor, you just skip to the part which is yours. You just go, oh, there I am.
I may be leaving soon.
Leaving Glenroe?
I volunteered for service in the Third World.
I'm going off on the missions. I never knew you were charitable. Well, I am now. See ya. Bye.
Well, I wish you every success.
Thanks a lot.
5 years later, pretend I've just been hit over the head, or you've been just hit over the head, and you wake up 5 years later. Fidelma's walking down the road. Hi, Fidelma. I'm back from Tanzania. Who dreams up this stuff?
By the late 90s, Glenroe's average audience had almost halved from its peak of 1 million viewers.
I think the feeling on high was that Glenroe had run out of steam.
Now 17 years into its run, Glenroe's lead actors had some important decisions to make.
I think when Mary approached me and said to me that she wanted to change the direction of her career, and I truly believe that that's what she wanted to do. And I have to say I agreed with her.
I knew that if I didn't do it then, if I didn't ring and say, I want to come in and talk to you, then I would never do it. About 2 weeks later, I think, or 3 weeks later, somebody ran up to me in the canteen and said, you know, you're going to die, you know, you're going to be killed off. I think we filmed the car crash scene before we filmed my last scene. I did my, oh my God, I'm going into the ditch driving, and then I left them too, but I wasn't going to watch. Simply because I was worried about the stuntman.
Big deaths in Irish soaps usually happen one way. They always have somebody drive up sideways on something and then, ooh! And that's how Biddy died, so I thought that was a bit, you know, ridiculous.
To lose one soap star is regarded as a kind of misfortune. To lose two, carelessness.
Just a few weeks later, Joe Lynch told RTE bosses that he too was leaving the show. Now 74, he had spent 17 years playing Dinny Byrne, the country's most lovable rogue.
Any news? Is there any sign of anything yet?
If there's anything to tell you, you'll be the first to know.
There's nothing worse than climbing out of a clane bat and into dirty drawers. You interfere in any way, and so help me God, son or no God, I'll have the law on you. Thanks for the drink. My choky old hood. I heard that.
For me, his greatest part was Dinny Byrne, a mountain man from Wicklow, coming down the mountain in his dignified way to navigate his way into the maze of the urban world. And he always had that, the the wonderful manners of an old-time countryman mixed with an absolute love of divilment.
Now listen, bring them in for tea when you're finished, okay?
That's very kind of you, Mary.
Come on, lads, up this way.
Look, Mary, there's no call to be calling her Mary. Sure, you hardly know her. Won't be long getting to know her. You're not 5 minutes in the place making a holy show of us.
I remember Wesley used to talk about this. You know, one of our great strengths is the fact that we have this wonderful 3 people at the top of the show, you know. But if anything happens to them, the show is finished.
Well, we were all rung one morning and asked would we come in, and then I think it was Cathal Gowan came in, didn't he, and various people, and he said that, you know, he was sorry to say that it had kind of come to the end of its life, more or less, and so forth, and that was it.
I was devastated. I really was devastated, because that was much harder for me than leaving. Because to me, the lovely thing was carrying on, that lovely mixture of personalities.
In May 2001, Glenroe came to an end.
Hello. How weird is this?
How are you, darling?
Hi.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Oh, God.
Isn't this the most bizarre thing ever?
Yeah.
It's really weird.
yeah.
How long has it been since you've been here?
17 years.
17 years.
And
Wow.
I tell you why it's 17 years, because I had a good old ball in the car when I came down here and I parked first. Because, you know, there's so many happy memories
Yeah.
and then so many lovely people gone.
Yeah.
So it was a magical time.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you were a kid and you didn't really maybe take it in, but for the adults, it was just an utterly magical time, really. This is where everybody thought was lovely and cosy, but it was really cold.
Yeah,
because it was
Dinny's
yeah.
cottage.
Yeah, and it had the jacuzzi in it, remember?
Oh my, yeah.
Yeah.
Why was there a jacuzzi in there?
I think it was Teasy did it up or something, and put a jacuzzi. It was one of Wesley Burroughs' wonderful, you know, mad ideas.
For many years, Glenroe was the focus of our Sunday nights. It drew us in with its note-perfect depiction of Irish rural life in a more innocent time. Biddy, Miley and Dinny are long since departed, but their place in our collective memory is secure.
Everything changes, the world changes, we all change, culture changes. But within those years, Glenroe was what kept us all thinking and talking and escaping.
A couple of statues around this campus, but if ever they were to put a statue to one person, it should be to Wesley Burroughs. For me, he was outstanding creator, writer, broadcaster, you know. Contributed so much to who we are as a nation, understanding. And he came from this island, this complete island. He's a wonderful man. He's a great friend.
Miley Byrne. We don't often see you around these parts.
Their place shut down and I had a bit of free time, so I thought I'd take a spin up around the place. Pint.
Next weekend, Brendan Gleeson stars as a man once described as a world-class criminal and a working-class hero, telling the extraordinary true story of the rise and fall of gangster Martin Cahill. The General is your movie next Sunday night at 9:35 here on RTE1. After the break tonight, a man who began his on-screen life as a brooding farmer in Bracken talks about his rise to fame. Gabriel Byrne discusses the meaning of life with Gay Byrne next.
Is it going to take up to a year before some of those people are able to drink the water from their taps?